Well, Marianne Williamson is a best-selling author, a celebrity spiritualist, a confidant of Oprah Winfrey, and she has her way. She'll also be America's first female president, with many Democrats warning that Joe Biden is simply too old to run again. She wants to outflank him from the left, the more youthful left, you might think, and harness love to defeat Donald Trump. And I'm delighted to say you're here in London and in my studio. Great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I want to play you a clip. This is President Biden last week ending a speech about gun violence by completely randomly saying this.
It's the least consequential part of this whole meeting for you, I promise. All right? God save the Queen, man.
OK, well, two things. The Queen died 10 months ago.
She's not our Queen.
Our monarch, yes, not your Queen, and our Queen died 10 months ago. This is the latest thing involving President Biden, where he just said stuff which makes no sense, actually is pretty inappropriate, to some people quite offensive. He seems to have forgotten our Queen died last year. And it goes to his mental capability. It's a big issue. I mean, it can't be ignored, I don't think. How do you feel about this?
I think it's for the individual voter to decide. It gets personal, and I don't want to be personal about this. I'm running against the president on issues. There are many people in his camp who would argue, yes, he makes gaffes like this, but when it comes to his decision-making on issues, he's just fine. Every individual has to decide on that, and I think it's kind of cheap for me to go there.
I mean, it happens a lot.
It happens a lot. Obviously, I wouldn't be running if I didn't think I'd make a better president.
Right. I want to talk about a couple of issues with you, which are in the news, which you have quite strong views about. One, I want to play you a clip. This is the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, who was heard on a leaked video talking about the big trans debate at the moment.
You may have noticed Ed Davey has been very busy. Like me, you have probably seen that he was busy trying to convince everybody that women clearly had penises. And I was reflecting, you'll all know, I am a big fan of everybody studying maths to 18. But it turns out that we need to focus on biology to 18.
So this has become a big thing, right? Along with the question, what is a woman? There's now a big debate where British political leaders have been asked about whether a woman can have a penis, and they've given varying answers. The British Prime Minister says no. The Labour leader says 99% of women do not. And the Liberal Democrat leader, who he was referencing there, says clearly women can have penises. On the face of it, this might seem a strange debate to be having, but what are the answers? I mean, you're a presidential candidate.
Well, in the United States, I think we are obviously going through a cultural transformation. People are getting more comfortable with the notion of gender fluidity, non-binary sexuality. For me, it's an issue of freedom. People get to be whoever they want to be, do whatever they want to do if it doesn't hurt anyone else. To me, we have to follow a North Star in our society. That North Star is the idea that all people are created equal. If you talk to me about a trans American, the part that matters to me is the word American. And so...
But what is a woman to you?
Listen, it's whatever at this point in somebody's culture, in American culture, certainly kind of whatever anyone says that it is.
Yeah, but it can't be. It can't be though.
Yes, it absolutely can. If people want to identify
it hurts people, but if anyone can put their hand up and say they're a woman, we have a situation we had recently where the leader of the of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, of the Scottish National Party, she had to resign after putting a biological male rapist into a women's prison. So there is obviously damage there from self-identity, isn't there?
Well, certainly, but I think the issue there was rapists, not the issue of the sexual.
What is the fact she felt that this male rapist, who identified as a woman at his trial,
that would be hard,
right? Simply to get into a women's prison.
Yeah.
That's wrong, right?
Well, yes, but then that's once you're talking about something like rape, then obviously it becomes relevant. It's not relevant.
What about sport?
Well, on sports, I do think we need to protect girls who were born as girls. If they are in a situation where somebody, obviously because of the size of their muscles and of their body, gives them an...
But that's all biological males.
Well, yes, that's sort of my point.
So you would stop... Well, hang on, just to clarify that. You would stop biological males competing against biological females.
Unless it can be proven, there are some situations where somebody, let's say they were born as a man, but they're a small man, right? And it can be proven through hormone testing, through muscle testing, and so forth, that there is no biological advantage. But you know, the other day I spoke at Cambridge University, and I noticed when I went into the area where the bathrooms were, that it said, use whatever bathroom you're more comfortable with. And I thought, oh my God, it could be that easy. So I think everybody needs to lighten up on this issue.
Well, it's fine, except it's hard to lighten up if you are, say, a female Olympic athlete and you're losing out on your place.
Well, that's
because a biological male who's 6'3" and built like an outhouse decides to take your slot by saying, hey, I'm a woman, which goes back to your initial thing that you should all be what you want to be. Well, sure, I want to be, you know, I want to be a movie star, but I'm not. There's a reality check.
If you're talking about specific instances, such as sports, such as where somebody goes in prison, et cetera, then obviously these become issues that have to be deciding points. But there is another world out there, which it's not hurting anybody. It just has to do with somebody's desire to identify a certain way, the area where we need to culturally open our minds to the idea of fluidity in gender and so forth. And both can be true at the same time.
Well, I'm not sure it can, because I don't think you can have limitless self-identity without it infringing particularly on women's rights to equality and fairness. That's the problem with it. And that's why it sounds great to say, of course you can, but then you end up with that ridiculous woman, Rachel Dolezal, who decided to identify as black. Well, if you have limitless self-identity, why can't you?
You know, I think that somehow we have to find that balance in ourselves as well as our society.
How, as a lawmaker who wants to be the first female president of the United States, what's the balance? Because you either allow it or you don't.
No, I disagree with you. As president, I think my responsibility is to the notion of all people created equal. I, as president, quite the opposite of what you just said. As president, hey, I want the whole notion of my presidency would be, please be who you want to be, do what you want to do, spread your wings and soar. If you get to the point where you're infringing on the rights of other people, you're going to have a hard time with me.
How would you feel if a man decided to, a male politician, decided to suddenly identify as female and became the first woman president of the United States?
I'd be like, damn, but that wouldn't mean...
You wouldn't just be damned, you'd be like, what?
I don't think...
You'd be horrified.
But that doesn't mean I think it would be illegal or that it should
I didn't say it'd be illegal. That's the whole point.
No.
The whole point, Madam Would-Be President, is it's perfectly legal.
I think, well, that's my
It's
point.
just wrong.
I don't even think it's wrong. It's just I think we'd all down a few glasses of wine that night. We wouldn't be real happy about it. But
Usain Bolt wants to run as a woman in the Olympic 100 meters. You going to allow it?
No, I believe that this thing with sports, we must protect those who, you know, when you see these girls who were born as girls and they have worked so hard, you know, obviously, and I think most people see that.
Quickly about reparations.
Yes.
So we've had lots of debates on the show about this whole issue. I have to admit, I come from a position, I don't see why people today should be compensated for sins against their ancestors, some cases centuries ago. Explain to me why I'm wrong.
Because it's not just about you. It's about the responsibility that you have as a citizen to the fate of your country. And whether you are an individual or a nation, you're not going to have the future you want if you don't clean up the past. You know.
So should but on that then, should I be claiming money back as someone in Britain from the Italians for what the Romans did, from the Normans for what they did, from the Vikings, for their forebears? Now, should I be claiming reparations from all of them? And if not, what's the difference?
I'll tell you what the difference is. There is no way that a modern Brit is being economically disadvantaged by something that the Vikings did. Well, I think it's been a long, long time.
You don't know. There might be people in the middle of Britain who are still suffering the appalling financial injury of what the Romans did to their families.
Let me answer your question. It is very obvious that there has been intergenerational hardship financially. The gap between blacks and whites that is so egregious in America today is a legacy not only of slavery, not only almost 250 years of slavery, but also of almost 100 years since then of institutionalized suppression of black people. This is 350
But at what point do we
years.
stop feeling guilty about the past?
After we've paid our debt.
Or paying for the past.
There's a difference
But
between...
Marianne, here's my point. It never stops. Once you uncork that bottle,
You need to
you
let me
end up
talk.
never stopping.
You need to let me talk. There's a difference between blame and responsibility. I don't feel I need to feel guilty. My parents came from Russia and Poland, my grandparents. So it's not about my grandparents. It's not about my feeling guilty. It is about my feeling responsible for the well-being of my nation. Germany paid over $89 billion to Jewish organizations after World War II.
That's true.
And I think that financial remuneration has had a lot to do with not only the financial, but even more importantly, the psychological and emotional healing between Germany and the Jews of Europe. And this is a healing that we have not had. That war was over in 1945. Ours was over in 1865, and we still take this toxic baton and we pass it generation to generation.
You make a good point. I need a one-word answer to this question to wrap things, okay? Should Donald Trump, if he gets convicted of a federal crime and actually goes to prison, the Constitution says he can still be president of the United States. Should he be allowed to be?
It's not about, the law is the law. Would it be disappointing? Would it be awful for the country? Yes, but if it's legal, it's legal.